Staying informed without drowning in info. That's what we try to help you do. Today, we're going to dive into the U.S. semiconductor industry. We'll use some recent news reports about Intel as our way in.
Yeah, Intel's a really good lens for this. They're such a major U.S. player, so their challenges, well, they often reflect bigger issues in the whole sector.
Exactly. So our mission today is simple. Figure out the core problems facing U.S. chip makers, using Intel's situation as a case study, basically, and also look at how things like competition and trade policies are factoring in.
Makes sense. Where should we start?
Okay, so the reports we looked at talk about potentially huge layoffs at Intel, like possibly over 20% of their workforce. That's a massive number. Potentially over 21,000 people based on this year's headcount.
Wow, 20%. That's significant streamlining. And this isn't entirely out of the blue, is it? They announced cuts before.
Right. You remember back in August last year, they signaled about a 15% reduction. So this looks like,
Yeah.
well, an acceleration.
And the thing is, Intel isn't struggling in a vacuum. Even with innovative companies like NVIDIA doing amazing things, the broader U.S. semiconductor industry seems to be finding it tough.
Tough how?
Well, tough to keep that leading edge, particularly in really hot areas like AI and 5G. And when that happens, global competitors see an opportunity and they start gaining ground.
Okay. And this is where the report's connected to U.S. tariff policies.
Yeah.
That's interesting. The idea was, I suppose, to boost manufacturing here at home.
Right. But the report suggests these tariffs have actually kind of backfired in some ways. They've disrupted global supply chains.
And raised costs.
Exactly. Increased cost for raw materials, for components, things essential for companies like Intel.
Like those rare earth elements needed for chips, I read prices for some of those have really jumped.
Precisely. And think about Intel's setup. They manufacture globally, right?
Yeah, they have fabs in the U.S., but also Malaysia, China, Vietnam. It's spread out.
So these tariffs put pressure on them to potentially move manufacturing back to the U.S., which sounds good maybe, but it's incredibly expensive and complex.
You're basically tearing up established, efficient supply networks.
Yeah, networks built over years. It's not a quick switch.
And the reports also mention other countries aren't standing still. They're actively investing, building up their own semiconductor capabilities.
Which just adds another layer of competition, doesn't it? It puts even more pressure on the U.S. market position.
So it makes you question if the tariffs, whatever their original intent, are maybe causing more problems than they solve right now.
It definitely highlights how interconnected everything is. You've got Intel facing this storm, but it seems like a mix of things, lagging maybe in some innovation cycle.
Compared to global competitors, yeah.
Then you have these trade policies adding cost and complexity, messing with supply chains.
Plus the sheer difficulty of managing that huge global manufacturing network.
And probably talent shortages, too. That's always a factor. It all feeds into, perhaps, declining market confidence.
So what's the takeaway for you listening? Well, it suggests the whole U.S. semiconductor sector might be at a bit of a disadvantage globally because of all these pressures combined.
Right. And the worry is, if these policies and competitive dynamics just continue as they are, the situation could actually get worse, not better.
The potential ripple effects are pretty big too, aren't they?
Absolutely. What's happening at Intel, these potential major layoffs, it could be a warning sign. Maybe a sign of wider problems brewing for U.S. chip making if these core issues policy competition aren't tackled effectively.
Which ultimately could risk U.S. manufacturing strength and even shake up the global tech supply chain stability.
Yeah, it's all tied together.
Okay, so wrapping this up, our dive using the Intel reports really shows the U.S. semiconductor industry facing some serious headwinds. It's this mix of fierce global competition and maybe problematic aspects of current trade policies. It raises big questions about future competitiveness.
Definitely. Which leaves us with a final thought for you to consider. We know how deeply interconnected the global tech supply chain is. So thinking about that, what kind of really innovative solutions, maybe beyond just tariffs or subsidies, might be needed to make sure the U.S. semiconductor industry stays strong and, ideally, leads in the long run?